Phillip Donald, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on, man. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Dude, getting this podcast started was probably one of the funniest experiences of my week.
Well, I mean, too, the sun sets, or the sun goes right over the back of my house, so that was shining in. I give you that. And my wife and daughter just got back from a field trip, and evidently I locked the garage door, so they had to come in that way. So
they were violently banging on your door. We could hear it. Your cat cleaning herself,
yeah, whatever. Well, it's his office, man. I just visit.
You just work here, yeah. You visit, yeah. It was. Kristen had so many adjustments, I just couldn't help but chuckle nonstop. So, no, yeah, man, it's seriously good to have you on here. I've been wanting to have more guys from our team on here, just to, as people are watching these and trying to glean some helpful stuff, but also be encouraged to keep pressing on in this industry. I wanted, maybe to get a little bit more personal of a take with, one of the guys on our team, that help in this industry. So that's, I appreciate you coming on. So why don't we dive right in? I always like to start with, getting a little bit of a personal background from people as far as you're willing to go. I know you have a incredible background, and I know a lot of it's sensitive too. So you just share as much as you're willing to do, willing to share, how you grew up, where you grew up, when you grew up, your family life as a kid and young adult, the type of education you had, anything that you're willing to share that led you to the person that you are today, helping the people that you do today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how far you want me to go back. I mean, we can kind of start. I mean, I was born in Greenville, Mississippi, which is a very small town. My backyard was the Mississippi River, so we did a lot of fishing, a lot of boating, stuff of that nature. Had a lot of floods too, being right there on the Mississippi River. Eventually, my mother moved us to Alabama, which was where I'm at today. I was about 5-6 years old when we moved. We moved around to a lot of different schools. I mean, single mom, moved a lot. At home by myself a lot. Had to learn how to cook, feed myself, and do my own laundry, cook, clean, all that good stuff. It was very interesting. So I was at
grew up fast.
I was at a multitude of high schools and middle schools, to say the least. Eventually, I decided to kind of go off on my own. I joined the military at 21. I was a corpsman on the green side with the military, so that was fun. Spent all my time with the Marines. Did a couple of tours in Iraq, which was interesting to say the least. I wouldn't trade that experience for the world. Kind of shaped who I am, made me grow up a lot faster than what I was doing on my own, which is part of the reason I joined the military. But then I got out of the military in 2010, and I stayed in Memphis for about 8 years. During that time, I worked at GameStop, as the nerd I am, as you can see from the background. Quickly became a store manager, ran my own store. I did that for 3 or 4 years. During that time, I was going to the University of Memphis. Got some of my standard classes done there. Ended up getting my bachelor's online via Ashford University because I just didn't have time to go sit in the classes. I got the bachelor's in business administration because I thought I wanted to do business. I did not want any part of sales at that point.
Yeah. I think especially now, which we'll get into.
From there, after GameStop was kind of a whirlwind. I ended up working at AT&T, doing sales for AT&T. And me and my wife decided that Memphis is no place to raise kids, right? We moved here, bought a house in Harvest, Alabama, and we had our 2 boys, and then we ended up having my daughter Lily, which is, daddy's little girl. But right before she was, what brought me here too, we had to get a new job because AT&T at the time was not transferring people because it was during the Time Warner merger that they were doing. So there were no job openings, so I had to find a new job, and I fell into headhunting, recruiting, which was a 100% commission job, and very interesting. There were a lot of days I only worked half days. Played a lot of golf. Went out to eat a lot. But it was too stressful. I mean, 100% commission. If I didn't display, family didn't eat. You know what I mean?
Can't do that.
But I mean, it worked. I was good at it. We bought our house based on that commission, so it worked.
That's awesome.
And then from there, I decided I had enough of the recruiting world. And this is where it actually gets interesting and equates to what I'm doing today. I was the operation manager for a startup MSP. It was a franchised MSP. There was an anesthesiologist that wanted to invest in it and get going. I interviewed. They hired me. Had no idea even what an MSP was at the time. I just knew I could basically sell ice to an Eskimo, as everyone always told me. So I went there. We worked. I finally got us into the green as a startup, and then COVID happened. But that's really where I fell in love with compliance, that portion of it, because I would do security walkthroughs for clinics like Hills, which is a nonprofit here in the Huntsville area that provides healthcare, dental care to the underprivileged, but also provides them with new shoes at the visits they come to if they need new shoes. So that was very interesting. We did a lot of their sport.
Is that an Alabama? Is that an Alabama like central operation, or is that I've never heard
I believe
of
it's just here in North Alabama. It's founded by the Lincoln Ministry.
Well, shout out Hills.
So that was a cool experience, getting to know that and walking through and looking at HIPAA regulations and stuff and saying, no, this is not right. We need to do this, so on and so forth. So that kind of gave me my foot in. But once that closed, I was like, I don't know what to do now. So I actually ended up taking another account manager position at Tech Systems, which was basically a big recruiting firm that does placements for government contracts. I did that for about a year. And funny enough, my next employer actually called me for a job reference for one of my past employees. And I spoke to him for about 45 minutes. The guy that called me, his name is James Vanderweers. So we had a 45-minute conversation. At the end of the call, I said, I gave you 45 minutes of my time. Now you're going to give me an hour of your time so I can pitch our services for Tech Systems, see if they'll fit you. And
well, there you go.
That's how I met James and Jennifer Vanderweers. They hired me on as their HR manager, believe it or not. Those that know me personally probably are like, how could Phillip ever be an HR manager?
HR? Phillip? HR?
Yeah.
The pot going the kettle black up in that joint.
It fit.
I'm going to get us in trouble.
I mean, it did fit. It was an MSP. It fit. Yeah. MSPs by known aren't the most politically correct when it comes to HR anyway. So I did that. Yeah. I did recruiting for them, took care of pay raises and reviews and paperwork. But at the same time, I was going to school for my master's in cybersecurity and information assurance. And funny story, Jennifer Vanderweers said I would never be on her security team, which did all the compliance stuff. So I said, okay. Challenge accepted at that point. I finished my master's. After I got done with the master's, I went to Jennifer and said, hey, so I got my master's, and she said, oh, well, I need you to get your CISA. So 2 weeks later, I had my CISA.
Okay. You just dropped that bomb on her.
Yeah, and I went back to her. It's like, all right, now I have my CISA. I actually called her because she was out of town at an involved meeting. Said, hey, I just passed. And she was like, okay, we'll talk when I get back. And did. She moved me in on a kind of a trial basis. And I went under her wing, which has really helped develop me, honestly. Those that know Jennifer Vanderweers and those that probably view this podcast know her in this industry, especially the MSP industry. She was, honestly, we joke about it, but she was my Batman. I was basically her Robin at that point. I did everything. I went everywhere with her, learned as much as I could, soaked it up, went to conferences with her. And eventually she was like, all right, well, I'm going to give you a shot. I'd never done a CMMC assessment before. Right.
Gap assessment.
Yeah, gap assessment for one of our clients. So I was like, she's like, here, do this and I'll check it. I said, all right. So you know me, I pull up the regulation, I read through it, and I was like, all right, I'll give this a go. Obviously, the first one, there were some tweaks. Second one, there were some tweaks. And by the third one, she was nitpicking at that point. So she's like, all right, you're a full-fledged assessor at that point. So I handled all their MSP clients that had to do with the DIB. So it was 50, 60 clients. So it was 50, 60 gap assessments per year for these clients, and then helping them with the policy documentation and everything else. Fast forward to where I'm at now. And I want to go back. I want to say I got extremely lucky to get into this field the way I did. It takes people many years to get in this field and get established in this field. I got my foot in the door somewhere and showed the drive and the worth that I could get the stuff on my own. And that's what let me get a chance. So I know the cybersecurity, even the compliance field, especially our field, is very hard to break into. But it really is, I can't say this enough, it is about networking, honestly, and finding you a mentor that will put the time into you. And Jennifer Vanderweers did that for me. And she still does that to this day for me. I mean, we still...
Does it for everyone she comes to.
She really does. I mean, I'm still really close with the family. You know, I work out with James 3-4 times a week, and then see Jennifer, you know, once every 2 weeks, maybe once a month, where we eat and have lunch together. So they're still a big, huge part of my life.
Right.
But circling back, that job led me to where I was, because I met our founder and CEO, Ozzy, at the National Cyber Summit.
The Ozman.
And I was really interested in what Intelli was doing at the time, because it was, even then, it was far above some of the other GRC tools that I had used in the past for my gap assessments at the MSP. And so, you know, I continued to work, and then F1 was acquired by a company called Meriplex, which is another MSP. And eventually I got a message from Ozzy on LinkedIn, just kind of out of the blue, saying, hey, I have this role open. Are you interested? And I said, what the hey, I'll give it a shot. And, you know, here I am. I was hired in as a services lead, you know, helped streamline our services, which you can attest to.
Oh, yeah, baby.
And
oh, boy. Can I attest to it?
And then the operations life found me. And here I am, operations lead, and still involved in services, but to an extent here at Intelli.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, IntelliGRC had been, you know, just to give a little bit to the listener, a little bit of background, IntelliGRC was born out of an internal need by our parent company, who was a DoD contractor that did software development, that had the CMMC requirements kind of start getting, you know, put in their face as you better get ready. And so IntelliGRC was kind of born out of an internal desire to kind of automate and simplify where possible. And Ozzy was pretty involved from a small business, medium-sized business perspective in some of the working groups, which I can't really talk too much about, like the specifics of that, but he was involved in some of those early development conversations, and he took that and the internal need to automate, and it was like, hey, wait, this could actually be huge. Like, this could be very important for our, you know, for the DIB, for the industry. And then that from there developed into a much bigger project. It's not just CMMC or the DIB, but for all regulated industries, which is, you know, cyber regulated industries or cyber obligated industries. So we never started as a, you know, when Intelli was the speck in Ozzy's eye, you know, we never started as a services company, and we've never technically been a services company. Like that's never been the intention. We have always been, we want to provide a GRC platform that supports making life easier for, these businesses that just are trying to figure compliance out. And we just always have had a niche, a skill, and people on staff that have, been there to help, including Ozzy, been there to help people actually in the day-to-day stuff as they're preparing for their assessments or something like that. And we just ended up, it just became a natural thing that we needed to support some services level stuff, which now, we're really hyper focused on, supporting MSPs with their service offerings. That's our main thing now. But it used to be that we were just, hey, you need help? I guess we'll figure out how we're going to find the time to do it. And we just had no structure. And until you came, there really was not much structure at all. It was like, come all anytime, we'll figure it out. And that was kind of painful.
That was very painful. I mean, we would take anything that came to our door. I mean, we were the DoorDash of services for OSCs and anybody else.
The DoorDash, except we didn't have the drivers. We didn't have the drivers.
Yeah, but despite not having the driver / capacity, we still managed to get everything completed and get these OSCs through their C3PO assessments and get their certifications, which, honestly was a huge difference. I never got to see the ending of that at F1, right? I would get people ready, but they weren't doing assessments yet. So it's really cool to come here and actually see that cross the finish line and be a part of that.
Yeah. That is one thing I will say. Amidst all the pain of, not having much structure and bandwidth, limited bandwidth, some sleepless nights, all that stuff, the huge benefit that came out of it was, blood, sweat, and tears experience that led to the development of features in the app, capabilities that we have now that other people have reaped the benefits of from our blood, sweat, and tears, which, by the way, Ozzy was also integral in. The first JSVA that we did, it was me, Ozzy, and Roberto were the main actors there. And I was up till 2-3 o'clock in the morning some of those nights preparing and getting stuff ready for them. And that was fundamental in us learning how to do CMMC well.
And you've really, honestly, you don't toot your horn enough, but the amount of knowledge that you have in your brain when it comes to 800-171 and the CMMC world is just, it is insane. I mean, you've probably got as much knowledge of CMMC as I have comic books in my head. I need to push some of the comics out and stuff some of the CMMC in there.
Yeah, I was going to say, what I know about CMMC, I'm deficient in everywhere else. It's taking up too much room up here.
It's a good thing to have. I mean, you recently got your CCA, so that's a huge pin in your cap right there. I mean, I know you'd wanted that for a while. I'm glad you were able to push through and get that.
Yeah, finally. Yeah, and you're, by the way, for our listeners, Phillip, you're elite CCA.
Yeah.
What was that like getting that, and what how do you feel about that, especially with all the ISACA changes that have come up? What are you feeling about things right now?
It's going to be interesting, especially with the ISACA changing over and having continuing education credits and all that stuff that I have to put in. But I mean, honestly, it needed more oversight than what it had. My journey for CMMC and all the way to the lead CCA started with RP, which was like taking a Mickey Mouse test, right? So like going to Disney World and taking a pop quiz there. It was relatively easy. It doesn't mean a lot in the industry during that time. Gives you some fundamental knowledge, but not a lot. CCP really advanced that for me, and for me, the CCP was harder than the CCA, in my opinion. But that's probably because I did so many gap assessments at the MSP that I've read and reread the controls that it helped me out in that instance. But without my managerial experience that I've had from past environments, I wouldn't be a lead CCA now with that requirement, right? So I was lucky in that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that I wonder about for a lot of the CCAs out there is like me, I'm not a manager. It'll probably be, I mean, depending on where, you know, my career with Intelli or, you know, in the future, whatever happens, it'll probably be a while before I even have an opportunity to get the kind of managerial experience that it would take for me to earn that, you know, that designation. So I just wonder, like, what advice do you have for people who want to become a lead CCA, but it doesn't look like there's a clear path for them to get that managerial experience, or should they kind of just settle for the CCA until those opportunities
Well, I
come
mean,
up?
I wouldn't say settle. I mean, if that's your drive and that's the designator that you want, and you want it behind your name, I mean, there's always opportunities for supervisorial options within your own environment, right? Let me lead this. Let me do that. You know, those can all count towards it. Um, so if you're hungry enough and you have the drive to do so, I mean, you even you at this point be like, let me lead this. Let me do this. I mean, there was ways that we could help you out there.
Is that a promotion, boss? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just
You got to ask
kidding.
Charles. I think you
Yeah,
fall
no,
under Charles now.
hey, that is true. I do. Well, it's kind of where we're a
Yeah,
split. It's like split custody,
yeah. I get
you
you. He gets you on the weekends.
know? Yeah, or every other week, right? That's kind of terrible to joke about. Let's not do that. It's getting dark. Um, no, that's cool. So I guess one of the things I was curious about, because I was thinking while I was prepping for the podcast, you know, to have you on, I was thinking about, you know, your experience prior to Intelli was was kind of fundamental in you being able to succeed here, I would assume, right? And I was going to ask you, you've transitioned even within Intelli to operations now, like you're leading operations essentially for all of IntelliGRC. What having having had the experience of managing teams and whatnot prior, what if people were kind of trying to figure out what it would take to kind of get to a position like yours where they're, you know, they're leading, you know, more than just services but general operations and business and stuff like that, what advice would you have for them, you know, pathway wise, you know, what things should they pursue, what should they learn, what books should they read, what, you know, what advice do you have for people to get to the point where they can succeed well in management and operations, and what have you learned since being at Intelli that has even, you know, progressed you farther in operations and stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a difficult question, Stephen, because I never took a role and expected to be a manager. Honestly, that goes all the way back to my early days. Um, I was kind of always thrown
Mm-hmm.
into a leadership role. I don't know why. People kind of gravitate to me. I don't know if it's my personality or whatever it may be, but it started in the military. I was on my second deployment, and our medical officer had to actually leave to go back to the States. So the time I was in E4, which for those that know, non-commissioned officer, E4 is very low on the totem pole. I was actually put in charge of the FOB because I, just like you, I drove myself to learn as much as I could about medicine and combat medicine, how to diagnose, how to treat. And the medical officer put me in charge as an E4 over E5s, E6s, and even a chief, which was difficult to navigate with those
Mm-hmm.
personalities, especially with a military structure. Um, so that made me grow up, especially in a conflict zone where I was at. Um, you know, and then from there, every position that I've had, even if I started at the bottom, I've just strived to learn as much as I could, how to make processes better, how to make them more efficient, how to increase sales, how to just be a good people leader and put my
Mm-hmm.
employees first. So, what I would say if you don't have that or you're not doing it, it really is strive to be as knowledgeable as you can. Take on extra stuff, even if you don't really want the extra stuff. It's going to show that dedication. It's going to show that drive that you have for education and not be intellectually lazy, as our co-founder likes to say. Um, and people will recognize that. Not only those above you, but the people around you.
Yeah, the people you're leading. Yeah, I definitely see that. Would you also say, because it sounded like you were hinting a little bit at, the growing up aspect. Do you think a big chunk of leadership, and this might be a pretty rudimentary question, but do you think a big chunk of leadership, especially in this industry, and maybe even in the military, was personal discipline and maturity?
I mean, you have to have that. Personal discipline. To give you an example of this, when I was doing my master's, I started that right before my daughter was born. I was actually doing my first assignment, my first paper, while my wife was giving birth in the same room. Um,
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I bet she was happy.
she still talks about it today. I'm not gonna go.
I'm sure she does.
If I make her mad, that tends to come up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Wow.
that's just kind of how I've focused my entire life and my professional life, as well as my personal life as a father. I've tried to do the best I can, not only for me, but part of this too is I just wanted my kids to have a better life than I had growing up.
Mm. Yeah, drive, the motivation. You can't really be disciplined unless you have a reason to be disciplined. I think that's an excellent reason to be disciplined.
There's an old
Yeah.
saying that no one else is going to do it for you. You've got to do it yourself. And none of this was ever handed to me. It was really what I showed other people that gave me the opportunity to be where I'm at today.
Mm. Yeah, that's good. I think it's sound advice, especially for younger people who are trying to get into this field. Just work hard, be disciplined, do the things that you don't want to do so that you get better as a person and have a reason to do it, which we can all, from our different worldviews, postulate what those reasons are. But at the end of the day, discipline has to have a reason. So don't just go through life lackadaisical.
No, you've got to have
Yeah.
a goal. I mean, my goal with my master's was to move into cybersecurity, and I'd put myself into a position which made it easier for me than most. But again, someone saw that in me and helped grow that.
Yeah, I guess it's also we would probably agree, correct me if I'm wrong, but we would really encourage people to, even young guys or people trying to break into compliance, start networking now. You see people all the time, connecting and trying to learn and attending webinars, and sometimes that might get mundane. It might feel tedious to sign up for a webinar and you feel like, I've heard this topic 1,000 times. But if you're really trying to break into this industry, it can't hurt to spend time networking and building the knowledge base and building the network base, right? Sometimes attending those webinars, especially the ones that have Q&As, people notice you because of the types of questions you ask.
They do.
And yeah. So I think I 100% agree. So having been part of an MSP before, what is it, kind of transitioning to more of a practical note here for MSPs and for others trying to do services supporting MSPs. What's it been like transitioning from doing compliance work for an MSP to supporting the MSP who are then doing compliance work? Because that's got to be a little bit of a weird dichotomy for you. Or maybe, what insights do you have there?
I would say both are frustrating, whether it's on the MSP side or our side of the house, right? And the reason I say that is working in an MSP, everything you do is billable, right? If it's not billable time, then why are you working on it? You have to kind of justify your seat at the table. And we see that MSPs generally don't have the resources, or they put one person in charge of getting their CMMC efforts together when that's not the case. It has to come from the top down, and you have to have that leadership buy-in. Luckily, the MSP that I worked at, F1 Solutions, had that buy-in because it started from the top and came down. So we had a big emphasis on that to get our clients ready, not to only keep revenue coming in the door and keep them happy, but also for us to be known as an MSP that could get somebody through a C3PO assessment. Even our MSP actually had a C3PO come in and do a third-party audit on our systems. And this was me very young, and I got us through that C3PO assessment with a 110. And before, if we would have had a certification, if they were doing certifications at the time, but it can be frustrating on both sides. I think our side, that what we see in Intelli when we're doing services is exactly what I said. There's not enough resources or time built into those schedules for them to actually focus. And that's not every MSP. We've seen both sides of the coin there, right? We've seen MSPs that have 20 people on our first kickoff call, and we're like, we do not need this many people. While we appreciate your enthusiasm, the whole company does not have to be here.
Yeah, we have seen.
And then we see MSPs that we struggle to get meetings scheduled with to drive them forward. But a lot of that is just showing them value of why they need it, right? And I think we've started to do a better job of that as we've moved forward. But again, man, MSPs are all billable time. They've got to do their time. They've got to bill that time. They need the revenue coming in. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, I don't think I could echo it enough what you just said about this, the implications for success when it comes to these engagements that we do, trying to get MSPs towards that stage of being ready to, sometimes I put it kind of bluntly, not screw their customers during their assessments. That's literally the language that I often use is let's help MSPs get to a place where that's not the risk for them. But it is very, I think you're 100% right. It is very dependent on the resources that the MSP, within their foresight, seeing the end goal, is willing to expend as an investment now for essentially the rest of their future supporting DIB contractors. You're 100% right. We've seen the most successful MSPs, right? I think everybody can agree on our team that the most successful MSPs that we've worked with have been the ones that are like, hey, they're reaching out to us to schedule more meetings. They're that anticipatory. They're that excited. They're that anxious to get ready. Whereas I wonder what the disconnect is for some of the other ones that we've worked with that, they've come in seemingly excited or seemingly aware of what needs to happen. But then, a month later, they're canceling every week or something like that. Like, what do you think is the reason for that? What do you think is the rationale for that? Do you just think that their customers are not pressing them hard enough to get ready? Like, what do you think?
No, it's not the customers. It's the MSP's lack thereof of customers. They may only have one or two DIB clients. So it's not a huge revenue stream for them. So why invest what we're proposing in the time that we're proposing? Why invest that if it's only 200,000 of your reoccurring revenue for the year, right? You can easily make that up with a couple of commercial clients, and then we don't have to do all this stuff for 800-171. We can just, go about, we can pass these clients off to someone else. They get into it with the idea that we can do this without putting a lot of time into it. One person can do it. And we've seen that one person obviously can't do it because there's the technical side of the house, there's the administrative side of the house, right? And one person can't marry those really together. It really does take a team. But I think that tends to be the issue with most MSPs. They really haven't decided whether they're going to go full on into the CMMC space, to spend the marketing, all that to attract those DIB clients to them for that support. So, when they see how much work it is, they're like, oh, and then we see some backpedaling, and that's what happens with MSPs. You either got to be committed or not. Right? If you're committed, you're going to go through with it. If you're waffling, odds are it's going to take you a year and a half to get where you need to be in the eyes of CMMC. versus someone that's really committed. We've seen it done as fast as 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, we've had some really successful ones where it was a small team, like 1 or 2 people, but that was their life, right? That was the other thing. Just as a point of clarification, it's not that we're saying that if you have one person that's dedicated to it only, that it's not going to get done. But what we've seen, and back me up on this, Phillip, what we've seen is sometimes that'll happen, that they have one person dedicated to it, but they only give them an hour or 2, maybe a week, to even be in the mental headspace for CMMC preparation.
Yeah, and you can't switch
off. I see that. Exactly. That's almost as bad as just not having anybody dedicated to it at all. Yeah. Because of the mental switching. Do you see the same thing?
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, have a client that luckily we're finally getting them to the end, right? And that was the thing. We had to have a lot of, come to terms meetings and expectations meetings with that client. And then it got to the point where instead of 1 to 2 hours a week, they were spending 20 to 30 a week. They allowed them to support. But a lot of that too, and if MSPs are running into it, the whole point of what we have is the MSP enablement program is to teach you how to fish. And the best way to do that is when you do sign up with us. And I know this is a little pitchy, but I want to mention this because it goes hand in hand with what we're talking about. We want to be getting you ready when you are getting a client ready. So as you're doing it and you're getting yourself ready, you can also have that billable time of getting your client ready. So you're doing it in tandem. So there's that billable time there. So they're still making what they need to make and getting the best value of our services too.
Yeah. They're putting it right into practice, and they're actually gaining the skills. Your staff is gaining the skills. And of course, there's going to be elements of that are going to be overhead, like building your CRM, building, if you're going to go for your certification, documenting your SSP and things like that. But how much better is if while you're doing that, you're also putting directly into practice a lot of the concepts so that your customers are getting ready in tandem. I can't agree more. I think that is the ultimate goal. Sometimes it works out and it lines up like that. And sometimes MSPs are, trying to prepare before they start marketing towards it. But I think that is the best case scenario, as long as you have the staff to support it, right? That's the part that I think we are seeing as being the struggle, is they think they have the bandwidth for it, but then, a month in, 2 months in, a new project or a new customer or some other big effort comes in and start canceling meetings. And that's the tough part. I wonder what your advice is to help mitigate that, how to avoid that.
I mean, honestly, MSPs, especially MSSPs that have that service house offering, you should have somebody that is your compliance SME that is at least familiar with CMMC or the different frameworks in which your clients are following regulatory requirements to. But it's there is no advice. You as an MSP, you have to decide whether or not you're going into that DIB environment, and you do have to spend the money. But in turn, I mean, there's so many DIB clients. There's so many people that need the support out there. There's so much misinformation about CMMC that is still floating around, despite the rulings and it actually being here now, right? That MSPs are still falling to that old mindset of, well, we still have time. We're sitting on our hands, and we've seen that with DIB clients too. It's all in or nothing, and that's the advice I can give an MSP. If you're going to go into this, it's all in, and you go for it, and you provide the resources needed. Like, everyone needs a SME for everything. MSPs may have a firewall SME, right? Guess what? They got that because they're deploying firewalls to all their clients. They got to keep them protected, right?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, but
yeah, they got to have somebody inside that they can go to and get advice from and help from.
It's the same way with CMMC or any other framework. You've got to have somebody that's knowledgeable in it, and I think that's where a lot of MSP struggles. They don't know where to start, but they listen to everybody else around the water cooler, start this way or start that way, and they just don't have a clear line. And MSPs want to be told what to do. Their time is valuable.
Right.
They want to be told what they need to do to get it done. And the misinformation, I believe, has really hurt the MSP environment.
Which misinformation? Like, can you give some examples?
I saw something the other day where people still thought we were on CMMC 1.0. There were still 17 domains, and level 2 was actually level 3 in their eyes. And they were like, "No, what if we have to go to level 5?"
levels,
and I'm like, "No, man. Well, Joe over here told me this and said this is still the way it needs to be done." I was like, "No."
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just had a conversation with somebody. I want to say today. It was a text thread, group thread, and people thinking that FedRAMP is what is requiring the U.S. persons only requirements, and that it's so if you have ITAR, then as long as they're FedRAMP high, they're good. And like there's a bunch of nuances that like even MSPs need to be prepared to be aware of if they're going to support this industry and not perpetuate misinformation, but also be careful who they're listening to, so that they're not getting misinformed. 100%.
And we see that on LinkedIn all the time too. People parrot something that somebody else puts. They just repost it. They don't do the research and look into it. They take it for they take it for face value.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what you were saying about being the best that you can be in this industry does require being willing to put in the hard work and do things that you don't want to do from the lazy person inside of all of us. That tendency to maybe be a little lazy intellectually. It could really hurt people, companies, if you don't step up, get the right answers, and not perpetuate something just because you heard it.
Exactly.
Or something like that.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer that education can't be taken away from you. That's the one thing in this world that really no one can take away from you. Material possessions can be taken away, but your education can't. So you're doing yourself an injustice if you don't educate yourself, no matter what it is.
That's good. I mean, I guess in that same vein, what do you think is the most challenging aspect for MSPs trying to implement a GRC program for themselves, but also start to offer that? Because we can't say enough that we need more MSPs in this industry. We need more. We don't have. It's kind of like the conversation about there being bottlenecks with the assessment process, which it's not as bad of a bottleneck as people claim it is. But for MSPs, there are still a lot of companies that, if they don't have somebody, helping them from a technical perspective, and they don't have an IT department, like these small and medium-sized businesses, we just need more that are ready to support them and aren't going to cause problems during their assessment. I mean, so for those guys that we're trying to encourage to come into this, what is that honest take from your perspective of this is the most challenging part that you got to be ready to overcome?
That's kind of it's kind of twofold. One comes to the experience, and one comes to how do we build a program around this that we can scale as an MSP. As again, we go back to the money has to be there for us to actually move towards an initiative, right? One, they have to figure out the strategy first of how they're going to sell it, how they're going to market it, what their offerings are going to be. If it's going to be an a la carte offering, or it's going to be, if you're one of our CMMC or DIP clients, these are the things you're getting from us, which I don't really.
Which is what most of them go with.
Yeah, right? Most of them are going with, if you don't fit in this box and get these offerings, we can't support you as a DIP client. But you do have those offliers that still are a la carte, which makes it hard to fill in the gaps for the regulation, right? So that's one. Two is gaining the experience on your side of the house. I said earlier that maybe RP is not really recognized, but having someone on your staff, 2 people on your staff go through RP and maybe go through CCP, or at least one, so you have the knowledge of that controls and how to move forward will help you set you apart in the MSP space. Because a lot of MSPs are honestly, they're hiring these consultants to come in and tell them what they need to do, like us, right? Ours is a little bit different because we're actually getting you ready. We're not just kind of trying to consultant that's training you and goes away.
Right. And we have a lot longer of a relationship with you because you're using our tool. So it's like your success is our success.
Yeah. I mean, that's not always the case. To put that in perspective, those long spans is we have one client that I've worked with for 4 years. Going back, they sent me some comic books the other day.
That's love right there, baby. That's love.
It really is. But being said that we're not, and that's the issue. Like, we're not only here to support you to get you what you need. We're here afterwards for those questions and those things that may pop up, right? That consultant that an MSP hires that tells them to come in and how to do it and then goes away and you never hear from them again. So you're doing yourself a disservice by not educating yourself and then finding a partner that's going to be with you for the long-term success of what you're trying to establish.
Yeah. I do believe that partnerships in this industry are the things that make you win. Even if you're an OSC. So let's not just talk about the providers. Let's talk about like the actual compliers, the companies that need to get certified. Long-term relationships with, even if you're a huge company, right, that already has an IT department or already has, internal security staff, having partnerships and networks that you're part of, it's not just what helps you get ready initially, right? We've seen this across the board. It also helps you stay informed, stay ready to go, have peers that aren't tied to your profits, your profit or something like that, but they're peers that care about your success in a general sense and are willing to you can bounce your ideas off of. Is this a significant change? What do you guys think about this thing that we're about to do? Like, having partnerships and relationships and not living in isolation as a company, I think is just a fundamentally good thing for this type of industry where there's so much information that needs to be known epistemologically for your success in this industry. I feel like we all agree on that.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think MSPs have a little bit of foot forward in that than an OSC might, because the MSP organizations as a whole is a very tight knit group, right? We go to these conferences and everything else. We know people there, right? Because we've been a part of that, community for such a long time, whether we were here in this position or another position prior, especially in mine, working for an MSP for 3 to 4 years before coming to Intelli. I know a lot of people in that environment, in that space, and that has really helped. If Intelli, if I wanted me gone tomorrow, I definitely have a job within a couple of days. So,
Hey, don't talk like that. Don't you talk like that. Don't you talk like that.
Being said, you're correct. The networking and the building the partnerships is really what's going to help you grow, and that's going to help you get the knowledge that you need to do, along with those educational pieces that will make you successful for you and your clients, or for OSCs.
Yeah. Well, and that's the part for OSCs. I've never, we have this IT Nation Evolve, for example, that we try to be involved in, where it's like these peer groups between MSPs that get together and they collaborate. They talk about their wins. They talk about their failures. They talk about the things they need to improve. They have, days worth of conversations where they bring in other vendors to kind of present to them and have talks. And, we're part of those. And we love that. And we've seen the fruit from an MSP's perspective of having accountability and stuff like that. And yet, in some senses, they're competitors. In some senses, they're MSPs. Now, they group them together based on, to reduce the amount of competition within the same room. But still, you're talking about people in a similar industry serving similar companies that you could kind of look and say, this is kind of a competition kind of relationship if we were to look at it like that. But they choose not to. They choose to, hey, when the tide rises, all the ships rise. And I'm thinking, Why isn't there something like that for OSCs? Why isn't there peer groups and accountability groups, and because there's a lot of government contracts. There's a lot of business to be had, that if HIPAA and CMMC and even ISO 27001 are part of some IDIQ requirements. Why aren't there peer groups and accountability type meetings for organizations that could help them grow too? Like, why do you think that is?
I haven't done a whole lot of research on this topic and why they don't have it. I would assume they were afraid just to share trade secrets. To be quite honestly, for those larger organizations, they feel like if they trade these, they may miss out on the next government contract that they could bid on. But I mean, even the OSCs have to do partnering agreements or teaming agreements with other organizations. That's where we have our primes and our subs and stuff of that nature, and even those staffing companies that support those. So in essence, they are doing it a little bit, but not to the extent where MSPs are at these Evolve groups, where they actually share their own financials among the group and get input on how to grow their business. It's very unique take, the way the MSPs have done it, but those that are involved in those programs, those are the MSPs that generally succeed.
Exactly. We have a lot to learn from that model, I think, of just being willing to help each other. Again, I'm all for competition. I'm all for, merit-based, growth in when it comes to business. But yeah, I think there's a lot of benefit to say, hey, I think I'm going to benefit if you benefit. I'm going to succeed if you succeed. And like you're talking about MSPs who their revenue comes from having customers. And if another MSP takes their customer, there's a risk of them losing revenue. And so but they still choose to do this way. I think we got a lot to learn in the dib from that.
When you look at these MSPs, to caveat just what you said, sorry to interrupt you, but those MSPs will often look at a customer that comes to them and like, well, you're not a right fit for us, but I know someone who you would be a right fit for. And then they pass those off to those people that are in those groups. Yeah. You don't see that in the OSC. We have to bid on this contract. No one else can get it. That's OSC. MSPs, like you said, we can learn a lot from them. The OSC market can learn a lot from them. And even other business industries can learn a lot from the way MSPs have modeled this in the peer groups.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say is, granted, the whole bid process on federal contracts is a little bit more isolated and hush-hush. You don't have as much collaboration there kind of naturally. But I'm not even just talking about federal contractors. So, and this is another reason why I think MSPs, and again, I'm not a sales guy. I just love talking about this stuff. But this is one of the reasons why I think MSPs are just in such a good spot to, if they go this extra mile to get their house in order, to get their documentation in order, and to start doing things, maybe alter things in a certain way just to make sure that they're ready to support these types of clients. They're in such a good spot, resource wise, access to knowledge base wise, vendors and tooling wise, to really shine in this particular DIB context. And soon, I just put out a blog about the GSA CUI, procedural guide. That's a big deal. The FAR CUI rule, whenever that comes, they're in a really good spot to really shine and explode in profitability and revenue, but also just being awesome MSPs in this space and having a great reputation. They're just in such a good spot. And I just wish more would kind of see that. So I guess shout from the rooftops. This is our message.
Well, what was crazy, and you speak of that, when CMMC was, thought about and put into practice, a whole lot of thought wasn't put into the providers that are supporting the DIB clients. I remember I was at, plug for Ride a Boom here, but I was at my first Ride a Boom, and there was a conference that they played, and it was the Secretary of Defense, or I can't remember exactly who was actually acknowledging the MSPs and the effect they have on these DIB clients supporting these government contracts. And that was really the first time publicly that had been noted, right? We always knew that MSPs were really the ones supporting these DIB clients, but it was never said out loud by someone with that standing. which kind of brought a light, I think, to the cyber AB and some of the other stuff of, hey, we actually need to consider MSPs and these cloud service providers and external service providers, and we need to put some guidance in there. Now, some of that guidance, in my opinion, is still lacking, but at least it's a first try.
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest, the most, when it comes to the conversation around external service providers, the focus has been since DFAR 7012 mainly on the cloud apps and the cloud infrastructure and stuff like that, with the FedRAMP requirements that are enshrined in DFAR 7012. But you're right. Like, how do you go so long, having this general understanding, or at least vague understanding, that there are these external companies doing all the IT and security admin work, for one of these DoD contractors, or for a lot of these DoD contractors, and it be 2022, 2023 before they're really starting to consider them, even from a codification perspective, even from like what's enshrined in documentation, because we still don't have clear guidance on how MSPs how they can get certified. When say, for an example, the MSP never will store, process, or transmit CUI, we have to infer from the current documentation for those guys.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, how do we get here?
I was in one of the cyber AV town halls and asked the question if they were ever going to put out an assessment guide for, the ESPs, the cloud service providers, or even the MSPs. And the answer was no. Nothing other than that. It was just no. But I believe there should be a separate assessment guide for those MSPs to make it clear, because there are still C3POs out there that will not assess MSPs because they don't process, store, transmit CUI. And we know that's false because we've seen MSPs get certified. We've had C3POs assess. We've sat in and argued on their behalf. So, again.
And we have the 32 CFR saying that they can. So it's
still a lot of misinformation and people just taking it for what they've heard years ago and not doing the research themselves.
Yeah. I don't think it's going to be unclear forever. This is one thing I talked about in one of the recent podcasts. I guess as a little shimmer of hope, somebody I was talking to, what we were talking about, how with these committees that are getting kind of underway and starting to meet, that the Cyber AB has kind of established, I really do think that this is going to be an unavoidable topic for clarity, because you're right, there are C3POs, we've talked to them, that believe that the predication for a CMMC certification is the presence of CUI. And in general, we would agree with that sentiment, but the literal requirements in 32 CFR Part 170.19 and in the CMMC assessment guide and the scoping guide even, it's clear that there are situations where an external service provider, it doesn't say whether they have to have CUI or not, it gets done defining an external service provider with CUI or security protection data, and then it just goes on to say that they can voluntarily go and get a certification. There's nothing in the ether of all this documentation that labels it one way or another. So we're doing a lot of inference. What I'm getting at is I don't think we're going to be able to stay in limbo la la land here with no clear yes or no for long. I think it's going to get addressed. So at least a little bit of hope there, I think.
I think you're exactly right. I think once they stop playing in the puddle and let the sediment settle to the bottom, that'll be a little bit clearer. And I think that has to happen sooner rather than later, because 6 months ago, I ran into a C3PO that said they wouldn't assess anybody unless they were GCC high.
Right. Yep, we still see some of those.
So again, misinformation is still out there. You have to do your own research and educate yourself.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, I'm curious that I want to get back to kind of our, what you're doing with Intelli from the operations perspective, because I feel like you've been learning a lot. I think
There's been
I can't help but laugh. I'm trying to say this with a straight face.
there's no need to. There's been a lot of later nights than I would normally work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and I'm curious, you know, with as much as you can share, you know, what has that been like? What advice do you have for other people, you know, especially from a startup perspective, because we're kind of still in that, you know, startup phase. What can you share about what you've gleaned as somebody who's already had experience in operations and management, but you know, taking on this new challenge of helping a startup like ours, you know, get to the point where we're organized and successful?
Yeah, I mean, all the operations roles I've been in the past, unfortunately they've all been startups. Uh, yeah, my first operation manager was a startup. This one, technically, I don't consider it as a startup. Most people do. We've been around for quite a while. We just decided what we wanted to be when we grew up. We finally decided that.
Yeah.
But I would say for those is have documented processes and procedures at the start, an idea of how you're going to do it, have it written down. That can always change, but you won't know what is effective and what is ineffective until it is on paper and you use that process or that procedure. So many startups, it's let's wing it until we make it. And there are no processes and procedures in place. And it has a lot of internal noise when that happens. And you don't know who's rowing which way without those guidelines in place. Have your clear vision, have that vision written down, have your processes and procedures in place. Even if they're your initial processes and procedures, try to follow those. Eat your own dog food.
Yeah. And would you say like correct them as you go? Like if you find something not working, just change it right there on the spot, codify it, notify
not
the team,
right away,
and just from
not
there
right
on?
away, like because you need some matrix to make that decision, right? So we're going to do this process for this amount of time. Then we're going to review the process, see where the inefficiencies lie, and see if we can improve this process and then tweak it at that time. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of work, especially for a startup when people are wearing 30 different hats, but it's going to save you time, pain, and you will be far more successful in the long run.
Would you say that's kind of part of like the EOS model? Because I'm still very, very new to what we're trying to do with EOS, even, you know, from organizing the way we do business and stuff. What is first off, what is EOS?
It's the entrepreneurial operating system. So it is about making rocks, quarter rocks, company rocks, and those that aren't familiar with those is, company rocks are rocks that driving a company initiative, right? And then your quarter rocks help support that company rock to ensure everyone's rowing in the same boat. It really helps your focus on what you need to focus on, defining your initiatives at the beginning of the year, deciding what you're going to focus on for that year, and then moving things that may not meet that main company rock. Let's say your main company rock is a certain amount of revenue for the year, right? There may be some things that you want to get done, but is it really supporting that main company rock, that company driver? If not, let's move it to a parking lot. We can revisit it at a later date. But it is really mainstream focusing how you are going to proceed as an organization to support the organization as a whole. And again, I say the same. We've all heard it, rowing in the same direction. A lot of startups have somebody rowing to the right, somebody rowing to the left. They start to go in circles, and nothing gets done.
Are there any challenges or cons to, you know, this approach to business, or that you've found, or like what does it impact culture poorly? Like what are your thoughts on, you know, things to be wary of?
I'll start with the culture piece of it. Obviously, MSPs specifically have strong internal cultures. They have things they do not, and I can say this. I mean, F1, when I was at F1, had one of the best cultures I'd ever seen. If F1 would have stayed F1, I'd still be at F1. uh, to be clear. But with a culture, you just have to make sure you are communicating what is happening. And I say this, and you'll probably have to edit this out, but employees and clients can put up with a lot of shit as long as they're told what is going on. Doing an EOS operating model for your internal organization is not going to hurt your culture as long as you are informing them every step of the way how we are changing. EOS is not something that you implement overnight. It can take, 2 years, 3 years to implement. And a lot of organizations don't implement EOS to the T. They pick and choose the portions of the EOS model that they seen that fits into their environment, their organization, and their culture. You don't have to do EOS to a T. I can't think of really one organization that I've seen do EOS completely start to finish. Right? So you start it as a kind of a religious journey. We're going to follow this, and you kind of find out what works for you and what doesn't work. And a book that helped me actually understand EOS is Traction. That if you want to understand EOS, read Traction. I can't remember the author, and I actually let one of our employees borrow my book, or I'd give you the author's name.
You can't reference it right now. It wasn't me. I don't read. No, I'm just kidding.
We know that's a lie.
Well, yeah, GRC, right? General reading comprehension. Yeah. No, I was going to say it has been phenomenal. Going from, and this isn't a knock on anyone. We were all disorganized, so this isn't a personal knock on anyone. But we were, going from 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, having very spaghetti brain approaches to things, but as part of that spaghetti brain, acknowledging, hey, we've got to make changes. We've got to get more organized. We got to do this. So it was always, we were always driving towards it, but we were still, all over the place. But then, comparing that time frame to now, where just to give an example, we've, as part of our transition and whatnot, we've been dealing with a lot of changes in the way that we do benefits, and we do, employee, the HR platform and stuff like that, that I don't know if it would have been as smooth. I mean, I know it wasn't smooth for you, but it would have been as smooth for us on our side if, like, you behind the scenes and all this hadn't been sending emails regularly. Hey, this is changing. This is changing. This is changing. Hey, you need to log in here. You need to log. Like, I know that not everybody read those emails every time, or that there were things that you wish people had, spent a little bit more time reading and from what you sent. But I will say, I have felt like it for such a major transition for us, especially adopting EOS and our new, EOS, project management tracking with Shreddy and stuff like that. It's a lot smoother than I was assuming it was going to go, just because of my experience with the squirrely brainness from before. So you can see the fruit of the process is what I'm trying to say. You can, as an encouragement to other businesses that are trying to get more organized while they're trying to support this industry that we care so much about. Hey, there's some benefit to this approach, and we can already see it anecdotally.
Well, thank you for the compliment there. I'm glad
it was a compliment.
You thought it was smooth, and that's what mattered to me, was making it as smooth for the employees as humanly possible. I know there has been some major changes, and those major changes, we had a shift where we would used to discuss those with the entire organization, and we come to a consensus. But when you do that, it can be death by committee sometimes, and you inadvertently shoot yourself in the foot. So with that being said, if you are going to do an EOS style operating system, you do have to have a champion within the organization and someone that is driving that. And the huge portion of that and implementing it successfully and continuing to implement successfully is communication to the people, because we wouldn't have an organization without our employees, right?
Right.
As my mentor used to say, there's a triangle, right? Employees, company, and the client. They're in that triangle. If you remove one of those legs, that table falls.
Right. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, as my manager, I will say that from a leadership perspective, I think things are going in a really good direction. I'm not trying to get brownie points here. I don't need to, but I do wonder, what advice do you have for managers that are trying to get to the point that, maybe we have kind of made a little bit farther down the road, and they're in their early stages, kind of like we were in. What are the, like, day by day type specific things that you would tell them? Make sure you do this, make sure you do that, based on what you've learned, but also what you knew was the right call.
Yeah, that's really honestly a hard question to answer. The reason I say that is because so many organizations are different. Their cultures are so different.
Right. True.
And again, it goes back to you have to have communication from the top down. Your changes can't happen from the bottom up. As we've seen, everybody should know that by now, but we still see organizations that are still trying to do that. That is by far communication, trust, and giving someone the autonomy to make the right and difficult decisions in some place. Would be what I would say. I mean, daily, it's really keeping people informed. I sent out an email the other day, and someone sent me a Teams message back that said, I love you, but this is way too long. You're killing me.
Oh boy.
So at least you read it.
Hey, that's all you can ask for, right? I had a tendency for writing really long emails too, and I got some advice about that. So I know what you mean.
And when we get to communication, not everybody has to be CC'd on every email with the organization. You don't need too much noise. And that's one thing we've gotten better at since I've been here. It wasn't just me. It was other people taking it into effect. We just got too much noise in our inboxes. Just so much to the point where it would take an hour and a half each day to go through your inbox. Is this relevant to me? Is not relevant to me. Why did I get this? And this all goes back to developing processes and procedures. That's why I said early on in our conversation, have those developed. You can always change them or adjust them, but have them and follow them. And not just the people that you want to follow them, everyone needs to follow them, whether they're from the CEO all the way to the guy that's delivering mail.
Would you say, how is the best way to get that across the finish line, like getting people to adopt these processes? I know what the generic answer is going to be, but nobody wants to just jump straight to employee sanctions and discipline. What is it that successful managers do to get people to fall in line with what is best for the company before you get to disciplining people?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm going to follow that up with another question for you. Would you discipline your child?
Yes.
Okay. You would, because you're teaching them values, you're teaching them processes, you're teaching them procedures without calling them that. They may be called something.
But you can't fire your children.
You can't. But you should have the same thing. Your employees should be your family, right? We spend more time with the people we work with than we do our actual families. Yeah. So with that being said, you kind of have to have that mindset. Going back, take care of your employees. No one wants to do processes and procedures. Trust me. I mean, they're not fun.
Yeah.
They're not fun, but they're necessary if you want to scale. And unfortunately, if someone doesn't follow a process or procedure, there does have to be sanctions and documented sanctions in place to follow. and you have to hold true to those sanctions when you put them in place. But again, relaying those sanctions after you put them in place and people acknowledging them and letting them know that this is changing is going to help you overall.
Yeah, I agree. And I think what you hinted at just there, I know that this sounds cliche, but it's so important for our industry that the element of trust and family, and this resonates for me probably more than anyone on our team if I had to guess, because I'm such an extroverted person, is like it is very hard for me to divest the personal from the professional. I don't know if I could work in a company culture that I wasn't able to build a familial friend relationship with the people I work with. I don't know if I could do that. And I think when it comes to holding people accountable, when we mess up, we all make mistakes. We all have to learn. We all have to grow. When discipline or when sanctions or when warnings and things like that come up, when you're in a culture like that, improvement excels, because and nobody wants to admit this, but for me, when I mess up or when I have to go correct something, or we have to have a powwow because there was a mistake or something like that, the feeling of me letting my team down that I care about, I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that goes a much farther way than just this number. My employees are numbers and I don't have a really real relationship with them. It goes a much farther way in from a cultural perspective than that. So I don't know. That's how I totally agree that trust is going to be fundamental to implementing these
I don't
processes.
think your statement is cliche at all. I mean, if you get to the point in the sanctions where you have to terminate an employee, you failed as a leader. That means you did not do your job. Now, is that the case 100% of the time? No, but it is 98, 99% of the time. There's always going to be those one-offs. If you're not able to coach and improve the people under you, you should not be a leader.
I think that's sound wisdom. And I think at the end of the day, leaders who take that level of responsibility, and that's like they view it as grave and a heavy thing to be a manager. Even maybe at some level morally, there's a weightiness to I'm somebody's authority. I'm responsible for them, and their livelihood is dependent on my leadership in many ways. I can't imagine a better way for employees and their managers to interact with each other. I just can't really think of one. So no, I think that's sound wisdom, brother man. Well, sound wisdom.
You bring up a kind of a good point there. You said that they take it on as they look at it like me. My weight is heavy, because I don't just look at it as you or the other people of my team, or that you are my own responsibility. I'm coaching and training you to take care of you, both professionally and your personal goals, right? To help you drive towards those. But I'm also, the way I look at it is, I'm not just feeding you, I'm helping feed your family. And as a leader, if you have 500 people under you, multiply that times 2, 3, or 4, and that's really how many people you are supporting as that leader.
Yeah, it's a heavy burden. It's heavy. It's a heavy way to look at it. No, I agree. That's good. And it's encouraging because at the end of the day, when people have that, they feel that weight, and they feel that responsibility is on them. I think that would hopefully mean that the experience of working with that manager is going to be, again, more familial. It's going to be more natural. Awkward situations hopefully will be reduced. I can't tell you how many times I've heard of people, coming into a company and, talking about how they just feel awkward all the time, or they don't feel like they fit in, and that ends up being the reason why they leave. But, when you're in a culture where and not everything is a culture fit for sure. Part of our hiring process is to make sure people fit our culture. So granted that, but in some sense, when people have kind of passed the sniff test of do they fit our culture and whatnot, you would hope that once they acclimate, that they don't feel awkward. They don't feel like they can't trust their supervisors, and they can't, people are, shooting for their jobs or shooting for, one-upping over them to make themselves look better. There's all these different aspects of working in a company that makes this so much better when the managers care about who they're supporting in a different level. So I totally agree. And I think it's good.
But you're spot on. And if someone comes in and they're feeling awkward or they're not feeling welcome, you have failed as an organization. You failed as a leader not to make them feel that way. And that can be hard in a remote environment like we are. I know I struggled with that the first 2-3 months that I was here. But that goes into us developing processes and procedures, a stronger onboarding policy, how we communicate with employees, and we've seen that change. And that was a direct relation of some feedback that I gave to our CEO. I'm very happy with what we're building here. I've said this before, this is becoming or has become the best place I've ever worked at. And it's not just because of the job or what we're doing, but it really is the people that are around me. Like, to be quite honest, when I got here, I felt like the stupidest person in the room.
You're not, dude.
I get that, but you guys, I learned so much from you guys, because now I have a soundboarding. I can soundboard stuff versus I was doing it on my own with like maybe one other person when I was at F1. I had a soundboard when Jennifer was there. F1 was sold to another organization. That soundboard was gone, and we hired one of my friends that we know, Kenny Watts, over at Sentinel Blue. I had another soundboard there. Hey, Kenny. I had a soundboard over there, and that really helped me. But moving into a place like Intelli, where everyone in our organization is willing to help the other person. I've never been in another organization that said, everybody kind of knew I was stressed doing this or going through the operations and the transition, but I can't tell you, there's multiple people from departments that have nothing to do with what I'm doing. Say, hey, is there anything you can throw over the fence that I can take care of for you? That means a lot.
Yeah.
You have the support.
It's amazing.
So it's a direct reflection on the leadership of an organization for where your culture is at.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Couldn't be more happier with some of the clear cultural decisions that we've made. One of them being, which I think is a huge recommendation from us, and I think is one of the reasons why things adjusted and got better from your perspective, correct me if I'm wrong, was the implementation of regular syncing and meeting with people, and if there's an opportunity where you're not heads down on something or you're meeting with a client, there's an open room that you can be part of. You can work on other things, but you can also be part of an active conversation with other team members. So you're not just, because we're remote, right? You're not just living in isolation. There's no physical water cooler here that everybody's showing up in my basement, but there is a virtual water cooler that we're all kind of around. I think that has been huge, and that was not always the case, right? That kind of came after, you had been here a couple months, and we're struggling with, just making sure we all got everything done and built that culture.
Yeah,
so I 100%.
I would say that came out of one engagement that was still ongoing when I came aboard, and then I got thrown into the fire there to lead that and take care of it. But we found during that process, because I had never worked. I mean, I've worked remote before, but it was more of a hybrid solution where I could still go into the office. I could still be around people.
Right.
This was completely different for me. And I say this to everybody that I interview or hire. If you've never worked remote, you're going to struggle for the first 90 days. It's you getting into a routine, you figuring out your routine, because everything switches. It's not just you no longer have traffic, which is nice, but that's the only part of your routine that you feel comfortable with. I walk downstairs, I log onto my computer, I work. I don't have to go anywhere else. But out of that engagement, we did those 8-hour working sessions to get them ready.
Oh, yeah.
So we all got to know each other a lot better. And after that is the idea of having that services quick channel chat that people can just hop in and hop out of, whether or not that they have a question or if they just need to hear another person or see another person.
That's it for me, man. That is like the biggest part of that is I can just, with the extroverted person I am, that was probably one of the best things for us is I could just hop in and see Phillip's bright and shiny, sunshiny face in the morning or in the afternoon.
I wouldn't say that.
Come on.
I've already been turned into an emoji. If you've seen that,
I saw that. I did see that. It's hilarious. I have a couple emojis. One with my double chin. You saw that one?
One of them is courtesy of me. With you laying on the ground.
Oh, really?
When we were at IT Nation.
Oh, yes. Yes, and I was like looking like I was gonna throw up. Yeah. Or pass out rather.
It was a long day. It was a long day.
No, that
was a long line.
But see, that's the thing. Like you don't have that. You don't have stuff like that when there isn't an intentional push to just get employees together and bond, like all the time, not just at some random retreat once a year. So I really love that about our culture.
Well, and too, we don't force that culture on everybody. I mean, there are still people that don't like to join those, right? But that's on them. We still have one-on-ones, make them feel part of the organization. They know they can reach out to their department lead at any time. I think I answered your question last night around 8:30, 8:45.
Yeah, my bad.
No, you're good. You weren't the only one with questions, and that's part of the transition process. And I don't like to let those linger to the next day if it's something, especially that has to do with benefits and there's questions that you need answered.
Yeah, no, I did really appreciate that. By the way, that was pretty urgent, so thank you for that. Well, man, I wanted to ask you a couple more questions if that's okay with you. I just wanted to ask you what your thoughts are for the next couple of years. Where do you see Intelli growing and getting better, but also the industry? What hopes do you have for the industry? Just anything that you see upcoming that you're interested in sharing your perspective on?
I can speak to Intelli. Again, I'm excited about what we're doing here. I'm excited in our growth just over the past year. I mean, from last May to where we're at now, it has been a whirlwind, but it's been a fun whirlwind. Every day is a new challenge. I have no doubt in my mind that Intelli is going to grow to one of the premier recognized names in the industry, especially when it comes to GRC and the features that we have within our tool. I think we will continue to improve those as the industry continues to improve. What I would like to see is something that we've already talked about, and clear guidance to MSPs and an assessment guide for those MSPs. And so there's no more gray area. I would like to see less of an assessor variance as CMMC moves forward. And I think that ISACA may help with that as well. But
ISACA and the committees.
Yeah. But I always think there will be always that portion of assessor variance, right? But I'd like to see that reduced.
Sure.
Those are some of the highlights that I like to see. And of course, next 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it may be.
6, 7?
No.
I'm just kidding. Hey, we had to throw it in there somewhere for the kids,
just brought
right?
me back to soccer practice yesterday.
You said you had a nightmare at soccer practice yesterday. Was that the nightmare? Was all these kids saying 6-7?
That was part of it.
Oh my goodness, it is so cringe. It is so bad.
No, that's where I'd like to see us. I think we have a clear path forward, and I think we have the right people in the seats. I have not met anybody on our staff that I have an issue with or I dislike. And I can't say that about for other companies I've worked at. Everybody is open. Everybody is transparent. It has helped in the long run get us to where we need to be, and everybody understands our goal and what we're moving forward for.
Well, you have some hobbies and interests I wanted people to be aware of. I'm not trying to embarrass you one bit at all. This is not here. This is sheerly content. Yeah. But no,
it's for the everybody content, needs to know
that this
for the content.
Yeah, it's the content, bro. This guy has what is it now? 1.4 million comic books. What is it now? What's the count?
It's not 1.4 million. It's a lot. But it is a hobby to collect comics. Right now I'm trying to collect all Bronze Age comics, specifically all first issues and last issues of those runs, and then I'll fill them in between as I move forward. But
by the time you die,
yeah, they're all going to my daughter.
There you go. Yeah, just this giant collection.
She can do with what she feels.
Oh my goodness.
What she wants to do with it at that point. Sell them, keep them, whatever.
Yeah. What got you into that? I just got to know. I've never asked you about this, but what got you into collecting comic books?
I was in 5th grade. We moved out to the middle of nowhere. My mom got remarried. We moved out to this trailer, 7 acres of land. My closest neighbor was like a mile and a half, mile away. They had kids, so I spent a lot of time by myself. And to fill that void, I found comic books. And the first comic book I ever read was X-Men. They did the reboot in the 90s with the covers by Jim Lee. And I fell in love. It was X-Men and Spawn. It got me hooked. And it helped me kind of get through those lonely times. And I collected all the way up until about 21 when I joined the military. I didn't have a lot of time to do it then with basic training, A school, C school, and deployments. And then I picked it up again, realistically, like as I was working at Intelli. I started back again, and ironically, the same.
We're feeding your addiction.
Ironically, it was the same time that we spun out, May 2025.
Oh my goodness. We fed your addiction, man. We fed it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what really triggered it again, but it was. I found a local comic book store I didn't even know existed, like near my house. And I just walked in there one day and picked up a couple of comics, and then I read those and I was like, why'd I stop? So
get help, get some help. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I probably do. I probably do need some help.
Oh my goodness, that's crazy. That's awesome though. I mean, I love hearing about different quirky hobbies that people have. That's good. What is and you also golf a lot,
I do.
right?
I do. I try to golf every other week. I usually have a set 3 or 4 people that I go play golf with. All from past jobs that I've worked at. So I still keep in touch with a lot of people from previous organizations. But I do enjoy golf. My daughter goes with me sometimes, which can be hectic, but she has fun. She likes to drive the golf cart, so she tries to drive the golf cart. Let's put it that way. And my wife is, to kind of circle back, so I want to give my wife kudos. She has supported me in every aspect of everything I've ever done and trusted me professionally to make the right decisions to better our family and where we're at. And there are 2 women really in my life that I can thank for that. That's my wife, Amanda, and Jennifer Vanderweers.
Wow. Well, shout out to them. We love them and appreciate them. So, well, Phillip, can you give some contact information for people to get in touch with you if they want to follow up or ask any questions for their journey?
Yeah, I mean, you can always email me at phillip.donald@intelligRC.com. As all our clients can attest, and anybody that emails, I usually respond within 24 hours. Unless I'm out of the office, then you'll get an out of office email, and I'll hit you when I get back. But I'm open
Yep.
to discuss it. I will say I will be at CS5 coming up April 15th through the 17th in San Diego, and I will be facilitating one of the roundtable discussions on the CRM. So if you are going to CS5 and you happen to watch this or this gets out before then, join me. If not, you can always contact. Sorry we missed you. Stay tuned. I'm sure we'll do a podcast on CRM.
Yeah, well, maybe one day. Yeah, definitely something like that. Well, Phillip, really appreciate it. It was just fun. I hope you had a good time too.
It's a blast. I appreciate you having me. Can you really have me if we're internal? But
yeah.
I was not forced to do this, anybody.
He was. It was under duress. All right. Until next time. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.